two worlds collided. One was a vast empire, ruled by kings who commanded millions, their armies unmatched, their reach limitless. The other, a cluster of quarrelsome city-states nestled by the sea, small, divided but burning with fierce independence. Yet when the might of Persia came crashing down on Greek soil, they stood together, and the outcome changed history forever. What made a small group of Greeks stand up to the greatest empire of their time, and win? This is the story of freedom, strategy, and legacy, and it begins now. Long before the clash of swords and ships, there was an empire unlike any the world had ever seen. In the 6th century BCE, Cyrus the Great forged the Achaemenid Empire, a vast realm spanning from the Indus Valley in the east to the shores of the Mediterranean in the west. His successors, most notably Darius the Great, ruled over millions. Their empire was stitched together by roads, satrapies, provincial governors, and a centralized bureaucracy that ensured efficiency, order, and loyalty. The Persian kings claimed divine authority. Their power, absolute. Their army, endless. Their ambition, boundless. To the west lay a different kind of world, one that defied empire. Greece was not one nation, but a patchwork of fiercely independent city-states or polis. Among them, Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes. They quarreled, they competed, sometimes they even fought each other, but what united them was something far more powerful than borders. They shared a common language, religion, and a cultural pride rooted in the ideals of freedom, citizenship, and self-rule. In places like Athens, the seeds of democracy had already taken root. Citizens debated laws, voted, challenged authority. It was messy, but revolutionary. And though their methods differed, whether the discipline of Sparta or the open debate of Athens, the Greeks valued something Persia could never fully understand: freedom. But that freedom was about to be tested. While mainland Greece remained free, many of their Greek cousins across the Aegean weren't so lucky. These were the Ionian city-states, Greek-speaking communities now under the watchful eye of the Persian Empire. For years they had tolerated Persian rule, but in 499 BCE something changed. A spark lit the fire. Led by Aristogoras of Miletus, the Ionians revolted, challenging the greatest empire on earth. But the Ionians weren't alone. They called for help, and Athens answered. Athenian forces joined the rebellion, and together they marched inland to burn the Persian capital of Sardis. It was a bold move, and a dangerous one. When Darius the Great learned that Athens had dared to meddle in his empire, he made a vow. He would not just punish the rebels, he would punish Athens itself. Though the Ionian revolt was eventually crushed by 494 BCE, the damage had been done. The Greeks had stung the lion, and now the lion was coming for them. Coming next, the Battle of Marathon. Darius had not forgotten. The Athenians had dared to burn a city of his empire. Now it was time to make them pay. In 490 BCE, a vast Persian force, thousands strong, crossed the Aegean Sea, landing at the plain of Marathon, just 25 miles from Athens. This was not just an army, it was the wrath of an empire, ordered to erase Athens from the map. But Athens would not bow. Instead of retreating, they made a bold choice: meet the Persians head-on at Marathon. Led by Miltiades, the Athenians marched to Marathon, outnumbered, outmatched, but not outwilled. Using clever terrain and the tight-knit phalanx formation, the Greeks planned to hit the Persian wings first, and crush their center. The battle raged, spears clashed, arrows flew, but the Greek discipline and strategy held firm. By the day's end, the unthinkable happened. The mighty Persian force was shattered, and Athens emerged victorious. It was more than just a military victory. It was the moment a small city-state proved that freedom could stand against tyranny. According to legend, an Athenian messenger named Pheidippides ran from Marathon to Athens, 26 miles, to deliver the news of victory. He bursts into the city, collapses, and with his last breath says, "We have won." That run, that sacrifice, would echo through history. Today, we remember it as the Marathon. But this was only the beginning. Across the sea, a new Persian king was rising, one who would finish what Darius began. 10 years after the humiliation at Marathon, a new king rose in Persia. His name, Xerxes, son of Darius. Where his father sought revenge, Xerxes sought domination. It was the largest army the world had ever seen. By some accounts, over 1 million men, an empire on the move. To cross into Europe, Xerxes did the impossible. He built a bridge of ships, spanning the sea itself. It was not just war, it was theater, power, and message. The East was coming. Across the Aegean, the Greek world was deeply divided, jealous, proud, and independent. But now a greater threat forced unity. For the first time, Athens and Sparta stood side by side. Sparta brought its warriors, Athens brought its ships. Together, they would try to stop a tidal wave. At a place called Thermopylae, the Hot Gates, King Leonidas of Sparta made his stand. Just 300 Spartans, joined by a few thousand allies, blocked the only road to southern Greece. For 3 days they held back the tide. 3 days of heroism, sacrifice, and glory. But a traitor revealed a hidden path. The Greeks were surrounded. Leonidas dismissed most of his allies and prepared to die. Thermopylae was lost. But it lit a fire in every Greek heart. A message freedom is worth fighting for. While Xerxes pushed inland, Athens had a plan. They evacuated the city and lured the Persian navy into the narrow waters of Salamis. In the cramped straits, Greek speed and strategy won the day. Persian ships collided, burned, and sank. Xerxes watched his fleet fall apart. His dreams of conquest began to crumble. The Greeks had done the unthinkable. Not once, but twice. They defied the greatest empire on earth and preserved the flame of freedom, citizenship, and democracy. It was a narrow pass between mountain and sea, Thermopylae. To the Greeks it was the Hot Gates. To history, it became the gate where a few would hold back an empire. In 480 BCE, as Xerxes' massive army swept into Greece, a force of just 300 Spartans, led by King Leonidas, stood in their path. They were joined by around 7,000 other Greek allies, outnumbered by more than 10 to 1. Estimates place the Persian forces at over 100,000 men, some say more. The Greeks? A tiny fraction. But their courage was unshakable. After Thermopylae, Athens lay exposed. The Persian army marched south, burning and conquering. The Acropolis was set ablaze. Greece trembled. But while Athens burned, hope shifted to the sea. And one man, Themistocles, the cunning Athenian general, had a plan. Themistocles understood what few others did. The Persians' massive navy, over 800 ships, was their strength, but also their weakness. He lured Xerxes' fleet into the tight straits of Salamis, where numbers didn't matter. There, speed, maneuverability, and home water advantage would decide the battle. The Persians took the bait. Their ships poured into the narrow waters, too many, too fast. Confusion reigned. Then, from the shadows, the Greek fleet struck like lightning. Sleek triremes rammed the Persians amid chaos. Archers fired. Warriors leaped aboard. Xerxes watched from a golden throne above, horrified. Over 300 Persian ships were sunk or captured. The sea turned red. The tide turned. The Persian king Xerxes had fled, but he left behind a massive army in Greece, commanded by General Mardonius. He still believed he could crush the Greeks by force, but this time, the Greeks were ready. For the first time, nearly the entire Greek world stood shoulder to shoulder. Athenians, Tegeans, Corinthians, and leading them, the elite warriors of Sparta. Their destination, Plataea, where the fate of Greece, and the future of Western freedom, would be sealed. The Persians outnumbered the Greeks, again, but numbers had failed them before. As the battle raged, the disciplined Greek phalanx held firm. Then came the Spartan counterattack, ruthless, precise, unstoppable. Mardonius fell. Leaderless, the Persian army crumbled, their tents burned, survivors fled, and the last hope of Persian conquest died on the plains of Plataea. The Persian Wars didn't just decide who ruled a patch of land, they decided the future of civilization itself. The Greeks had no emperor, no vast empire, but they had something far more powerful. When the time came, they stood as one. They fought smarter, chose their ground, used their land as a weapon. The rugged Greek terrain was a defender in itself, and perhaps most fatally for Persia. Overconfidence. The empire stretched too far, too fast. Its power couldn't reach its promises. In defending their homeland, the Greeks preserved more than cities or borders. They protected ideas of freedom, citizenship, democracy, ideas that would shape the Roman Republic, the Renaissance, and even modern Western civilization. These weren't just wars, they were crossroads, moments when the course of history teetered and the world chose a path that led to us. The clash between Greece and Persia ended on the battlefield, but its true impact would echo through centuries. Fresh from victory, Athens emerged not just as a city, but as a beacon of a new kind of civilization. The Golden Age dawned. Philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle would challenge minds. Playwrights like Sophocles and Euripides gave birth to drama. Architects raised the Parthenon while democracy flourished in the assembly. Athens didn't just rebuild, it reimagined what society could be. For Persia, the defeat marked a change of direction. No longer obsessed with the Greek frontier, the empire shifted its gaze east, toward India and Central Asia. The empire remained powerful, even admired for its governance and cultural achievements. But its dreams of conquering the West faded. It would remain a giant, but never again would it try to dominate the Greek world. But perhaps the greatest legacy of the Persian Wars wasn't territorial, it was philosophical. Liberty. The idea that people could govern themselves, resistance to tyranny. That kings and empires could be defied. Individualism. That one voice, one citizen, one soldier, could make history. The Greeks didn't just fight for land, they fought for a way of life, a belief that freedom was worth dying for, and that belief has inspired generations, from the hills of Marathon to the hearts of all who choose freedom. History is shaped by those who win. But what if the Greeks hadn't? What if, at Marathon, Thermopylae, and Salamis, the Persians had prevailed? Had Persia crushed the Greek resistance, the world as we know it might look very different. Athens would likely have become a satrapy, a province of the Persian Empire, ruled by Persian governors loyal to the King of Kings. Greek democracy, suppressed. The free assembly might never have flourished. No citizen-led government, no public debate. Liberty, as a political experiment, could have died before it even began. Without a free Athens, it's hard to imagine the birth of Western philosophy. Socrates might have been forced into silence. Plato might never have opened the academy. Aristotle, teacher of Alexander the Great, may never have inspired the scientific method. And without them, no Renaissance, no Enlightenment, no modern science as we know it. What happens when the curiosity of man is not encouraged but controlled? When truth is dictated by empire, not discovered by reason? Astronomy, biology, physics, all built on ancient Greek ideas. Without those seeds planted, who knows how long it would have taken for science to awaken again? What about our modern world? Would we still believe in freedom of speech, in human rights, in democracy? A Persian victory could have meant centuries of monarchic rule, unquestioned hierarchy, and state-imposed religion. The ideals of individual liberty, free thought, and resistance to tyranny might have never taken root. The Persian Empire wasn't just swords and conquest, it had a rich culture of its own. Art, science, architecture, and poetry. Scholars in Babylon, libraries in Persepolis. The empire respected many religions and allowed local customs. Maybe Greek ideas would have survived. Underground. Still, the fusion would have created a very different world, less democratic, more imperial, still beautiful perhaps, but not ours. The battles may be over, but the question still echoes, what if the Greeks had lost? Centuries after the dust of battle settled, the clash between Greeks and Persians still lives on, not on battlefields, but on screens, in games, and across modern pop culture. No modern retelling of the Greco-Persian Wars has captured the public imagination quite like Zack Snyder's 2006 film 300. Stylized, dramatic, and intense, 300 turned the Battle of Thermopylae into an epic of heroism. Gerard Butler's iconic line, "This is Sparta," became a meme, a rallying cry, a moment burned into pop culture. The real history, more complex. But 300 gave Leonidas mythical status, a warrior king standing for freedom against tyranny. The wars that shaped the West, now let players reshape them. Age of Empires lets players reenact battles, manage city-states, and expand empires. Total War Arena and Rome. Total War include units inspired by Greek hoplites and Persian immortals. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey, players explore ancient Greece, rich with historical depth and mythological flair. Through these games, a new generation experiences the strategy, alliances, and intensity of the ancient world, hands-on. Beyond the history books, this East versus West conflict has become a narrative archetype. In fantasy, we see echoes of it, disciplined warriors facing exotic, overwhelming empires. From anime to sci-fi, from comic books to TV shows, the DNA of Thermopylae and Salamis lives on. It's the classic underdog story, a few brave defenders standing firm against overwhelming might. It's about freedom, honor, sacrifice, themes that never go out of style. The Greeks may have defeated Persia on the battlefield, but in pop culture, both sides remain immortal. From the dusty plains of Marathon to the narrow pass at Thermopylae, from the crashing waves at Salamis to the final stand at Plataea, the Greco-Persian Wars were more than a clash of empires. They were a fight for identity, for freedom, for the soul of a civilization. The Greeks didn't just fight for land, they fought for ideas, and those ideas still live on today. But what if they hadn't? What if the Persians had won? Would there be democracy? Philosophy? Would we even know names like Socrates or Plato? Let us know in the comments. What do you think would have happened if Persia had conquered Greece? If you enjoyed this journey through one of history's most defining wars, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more deep dives into ancient history, and don't forget to hit that bell so you never miss an epic moment. Drop your thoughts below. We're always reading.